All right, welcome everyone. We're so glad you could join us today for the second installment of the second series of the Department of Correction Insider Series webinars. Our topic today is the first in a two-part series, Working Behind the Walls. My name is Heather Zwickert. I'm the Chief of Planning, Research, and Reentry for the Delaware Department of Correction, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Planning, Research, and Reentry is a specialized unit in the Office of the Commissioner that oversees and coordinates prisoner reentry initiatives, leads the department's data and collection analysis efforts, facilitates strategic planning, oversees accreditation and compliance, and provides project and grant management for multi-bureau initiatives. Today's presenters are the Chief of Bureau of Prisons, Shane Troxler, the Director of the Stephen Floyd Training Academy, Jodie Hunter, and the Director of Recruitment, Retention, and Backgrounds, Mike Nichols. For introductions, Chief Troxler has served the Delaware Department of Correction for over 20 years. As Chief of the Bureau of Prisons, he oversees the state's 4 Level 5 prisons, which house approximately 4,500 inmates. Prior to his appointment as Chief, Chief Troxler served as the Deputy Bureau Chief, where he assisted in overseeing all aspects of prison operations, including the special operations, food services, facilities and maintenance, correctional industries, and prison education. He aided the agency's efforts to secure accreditation with the American Correctional Association by overseeing development and revision of policies, procedures, and practices, and was involved in pre-accreditation for all facilities. His oversight role has also included participation in pre-critical incidents, inmate grievances, classification, elimination of restrictive housing, budget development, and performance measurement. Special projects have also included a reduction of placement of inmates with mental illness in disciplinary housing through a collaboration with security and behavioral health staff, reducing reliance on overtime staffing, expansion of recreation options for inmates with mental illness in the residential treatment unit, implementation of inmate electronic tablets, and creating an intelligence operations center for the department. Previous to his executive oversight role, he promoted through the ranks, beginning as a correctional officer and ultimately serving as a staff lieutenant and unit commander prior to becoming the deputy warden at the Dolores J. Baylor Women's Correctional Institution and serving as later as acting warden at that facility. His experience also includes serving as a boot camp drill instructor and a CERT tactical operator and team leader. Chief Troxler earned his bachelor's degree from Chowan College and has completed numerous trainings through the National Institute of Correction and North American Association of Wardens and Superintendents. He is also a graduate of the Delaware State Police Leadership Program. Chief Troxler is a recipient of multiple departmental awards for service and performance. Director Hunter began her career with the department over 27 years ago as an intern with probation and parole. After graduating from Westchester University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and sociology, she was hired as a probation and parole officer in 1998, rising to the rank of senior probation and parole officer. In 2010, Director Hunter transitioned to the Training Academy as a Trainer Educator 1 and rose through the ranks in the Training Academy with promotions to Training Education Administrator 2 in 2018 and to her current position as the Training Director in 2019. As training director, she oversees all initial and annual mandatory refresher training for the department's staff, as well as professional development opportunities. Director Hunter also serves as the department's CISM coordinator, use of force expert, and representative on the Delaware Valley Probation and Parole Training Consortium. She is an FBI Lead at Trilogy recipient and graduate of the Delaware State Police Leadership Program. Mike Nichols came to the DOC in 2021 after many years with the Delaware State Police and serves as the department's Director of Recruitment, Retention, and Backgrounds. Director Nichols served as a DSP trooper for 25 years, serving in roles such as FTO with the Honor Guard, CISM, and Riot Team, a trooper recruiter, patrol supervisor, evidence detective, and certified fatal accident reconstructionist. Director Nichols also served Delaware State Police as the head of applicant processing and recruiting and supervisor of the DSP background unit. Director Nichols holds a master's degree in HR management and administration of justice, a bachelor's degree in business administration, and is a certified HR generalist. So thank you to our panelists for joining us today. So today's agenda is going to include information about the department's recruitment initiatives. We'll give insight on the hiring process and provide an overview of the department's training academy, including correctional employee initial training for new correctional officer cadets, as well as additional training opportunities post-graduation. We'll also provide an overview of the Bureau of Prisons and discuss what it's like to work behind the walls. This is the first part of a two-part series. And in our next installment, we will take a closer look at some of the more specialized correctional positions. We'll also give information today about ways that you can get involved and connected. And at the end, we will have a period for questions and answers. Please submit any questions that you have throughout the webinar in the Q&A box on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please use the Q&A box versus the chat screen to pose your questions throughout the webinar. I'll select some questions at the end to pose to our presenters, and we'll try to get to all the questions, but given the number of attendees, we may not be able to answer all of your questions. Any questions that we aren't able to answer during the course of the webinar, we will follow up with you after the webinar, as long as you don't ask your question anonymously. If your question is posed anonymously and we aren't able to answer it during the webinar, we won't be able to follow up, obviously, at the end. We also aren't able to answer any questions during the webinar about a specific individual or a specific situation, but we will give you contact information at the end of the webinar if you do want to ask us a question about a specific person. We'll provide you information on how to reach out to us in order to answer those questions. The webinar will be recorded and posted on the department's YouTube channel, and we will make the PowerPoint available after the webinar. We also supply certificates of attendance for those who stay tuned for the entire webinar. Additionally, you can also view any of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel if you would like to view those. So the slide you see on your screen now just shows the department's level 4 and level 5 facilities. We'll be talking more about our level 5 facilities during today's presentation. And you can also find information on all our facilities and offices on the department's website at doc.delaware.gov. Today, we'll also be conducting polls during the webinar to kind of keep things interactive. Note all of our poll questions, your answers are anonymous, so we won't know who is providing answers to the questions. And our first poll, which I'm going to launch right now, is to get a sense of who's joining us. So we're going to invite you to check in. Let's see, launch poll 1. You should hopefully see a poll question on your screen right now, which is asking you to identify which stakeholder group best describes you. DOC employee, other state agency employee, nonprofit organizations, community members, student, for-profit human service company, legal, media, other. So if you just want to go ahead and check in so we can get a sense of who's joining us today, I'll give about a minute to answer, and then I'll share the results with everyone. All right, just another few seconds. Anyone else wants to check in with their response? All right, I'm going to end the poll. All right, and let me share the results. Hopefully everyone can see that. So it looks like we have a lot of DOC employees joining us, which I think is great. It's we find that we, I hear a lot that other DOC employees learn about what their counterparts do by joining our webinars. Other employees from other state employees, which is great. People from the nonprofit sector. Some of our human service organization partners, people from the legal arena, and quite a few people who we didn't quite capture with our options. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing. And now I'm going to turn it over to Director Nichols, and he's going to give us some information on the department's recruitment and retention initiatives and the hiring process. So let me advance you to your first slide. All right, Director Nichols, here you go.
Okay, so in order to become a correctional officer, there's some minimum standards that you, or minimum qualifications that you must meet first. First being that you have to be at least 19 and a half years old. You need to possess a high school diploma or an equivalent of that, whether it's a GED, etc. Possess a valid driver's license, no felony convictions, and no DUI convictions within the last 2 years.
All right, and I know we just did a poll, but we're gonna, the next thing that Director Nichols is gonna talk about is compensation and incentives for correctional staff. So I did just wanna launch a poll real quick before we move to the next slide. Why is it not letting me launch the second poll? Here we go, poll number 2. Does anyone have an idea what the current starting salary is for a correctional officer upon successful completion of initial training? Fast responses here. Thank you so much for participating. Give you another couple of seconds to answer. Anyone else would like to take a guess? And I'll end the poll right now and share the results. So it looks like 71% of our respondents believe that the starting salary for a correctional officer upon completion of training is $52,000, followed by 23% thought $32,000. The correct answer is actually C, $52,000, and that so is the initial starting salary as of January 1st of this year, and that is up from a starting salary of around $31,000 in 2017. So a pretty big increase between 2017 and 2021. So Director Nichols, if you would like to tell us a little bit more about correctional officer compensation and other incentives, that would be great.
As you just stated, our base salary has substantially increased over the last 6 years. Currently, if you are hired as a correctional officer, your annual base salary, starting salary while in the academy, would be $47,380. We have at the moment a $10,000 signing bonus that is paid out in increments. Anybody who applies prior to September 30th of 2023 will be eligible for that $10,000 signing bonus. However, after September 30th, it is going to be dropping back to a $5,000 signing bonus. Once a correctional employee completes their seat training or correctional employee initial training course, and after being assigned to a facility within the state, their salary will increase to $52,000. Additionally, they get a $5,000 shift differential for working 4 or more hours between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. And if you are coming from another state and want to be a correctional officer here in Delaware, we do offer equivalency pay for 10 years of experience for recruits from out-of-state agencies. One of the other things we just started recently in the last year is we offer hotel lodging for qualified recruits. In order to qualify, you must live more than 75 miles from our training academy, and it's only available from Monday evenings through Friday mornings. We have also been working toward, well, that's pretty much covering the correctional officer salary. Some of the other initiatives that we've done, we have over the last year, we revamped our recruitment webpage. We created a new recruiting video. We created a new web address for joinDelawareDOC.com. We've been able to direct emails or have a direct email dedicated phone line just for our recruitment unit. So anybody who wants to reach a recruiter can contact us via that email. We make ample use of our social media platforms such as Facebook or Meta, Instagram, Twitter or X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we have had our new recruitment video running on some of those platforms as well. Our recruiters, obviously during COVID, things were kind of muted a little bit because of the issues of COVID. Since then, we've increased our recruiting efforts. Basically, we target our advertising through various types of advertising, whether it's media, digital advertising. We've done, again, on YouTube, Instagram. So a lot of social media advertising, but we target mainly the Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, PA, Virginia areas. Recruiters have also been at the Delaware State Fair the past 2 years, and we've had digital advertising throughout the fair during the concerts and events. And our recruiters are actively interacting with all military TAP programs and facilities within a 125-mile radius of Dover, Delaware. Some of the things they also do, as you can see here, is our booth at the State Fair in this picture. They are actively recruiting on job site platforms such as Indeed. We give, when we have a hiring event that is scheduled, we reach out to all applicants that have applied, and those applied previously but didn't show up via text and email to inform them of the upcoming hiring event and encourage them to show up. Recruiters they're engaged in the hiring process with the applicants. One of the things we do is once an applicant has, I guess, dedicated themselves to the process and shown that they're actively engaging in the process, we will have the recruiters receive a list and they actively engage with them via text, phone, email to keep them engaged in the process and encourage them to move forward through the process to the end and mentor them through the remaining stages. So basically our hiring process it's several stages. Initially, you have to apply, and you can do that by going online via the state of Delaware website or join DelawareDOC.com. You fill out the application online. Once you've done that, you will then be contacted by HR and invited to come to one of our hiring events. During that time, you will you'll have an in-person interview. You'll have to complete our PT test and pass that. If you pass both of those, you will then be invited to move forward to the background investigation stage. In order to do that, you have to complete a personal history statement. You'll be then contacted once we receive that and the required documentation that goes along with that. You will then be contacted by one of our background investigators and who will complete your background in a period of, it's usually around 2 to 3 weeks to do that. Should you successfully pass the background phase, you will then proceed on to the psychological exam, drug screen, and physical. If you pass all of those, you will then be given a conditional hire and ultimately start in the next available seat class.
Okay, and I think we have our the recruitment video that you had mentioned. This is actually an award-winning recruitment video that will play for everyone right now. Hopefully this works.
Join DelawareDOC.com.
All right. Thanks so much, Director Nichols. And I think now we're going to turn it over to Director Hunter, who's going to talk to us about DOC training.
All right, thank you, Heather, and good morning to everybody who has tuned in to learn a little bit more about the recruitment process, the training process, to become specifically today, one of our correctional officers, but to learn more about what we do here at the Training Academy and other parts of the department. As is shown here, the Training Academy, we provide all training to our new recruits as well as our onboard staff. So we provide professional development opportunities as well as our basic training to our new officers and non-sworn staff, with an emphasis obviously on the core values of the department, which are integrity, courage, accountability, respect, and diversity. So this is just an overview so you can get an idea of what the Training Academy looks like. The Training Academy falls under the Bureau of Prisons, and we are part of the Special Operations Group. So the oversight is by the warden, Mike Merson, and our deputy warden, Christopher Kearney. And then there are myself as a Training Academy administrator or training director, and Jonathan Andrews, who is our training education administrator. We oversee all of the operations of the academy. We have a cadre of 12 full-time correctional training instructors, as well as 2 part-time casual seasonal instructors. We have a drill instructor unit that's made up of 2 lieutenants and 3 sergeants. We have an excellent admin team, admin specialists, admin assistants, both full and part-time. Our sergeant storekeeper, who is responsible for all of the behind the scenes tasks, not just for the Training Academy, but really for all bureaus of the department. We also oversee our staff training relief unit, which has a lieutenant, a staff sergeant, and 22 staff training relief officers. Those officers go into the institutions and relieve our onboard staff so that they can come and attend either annual mandatory refresher training or different professional development opportunities that we provide for our onboard staff. And then obviously we have our correctional officer, probation officer, cadets, and our non-sworn staff who are here that fall under us while they're here at the Training Academy. So just an overview, the numbers that are on the screen are from FY22, and I'll be able to give some updated numbers actually up until where we are currently. But as I spoke about already, we have our correctional employee initial training, which we call SEAT. That is the training which new correctional officers are required to complete. In FY22, we had 98 correctional officers successfully complete our academy. In FY23, we had 84 additional correctional officers graduate. And so far this year in FY24, we currently have 51 correctional officer cadets that are actually in training right now. As far as the basic officer training course, which we call BOTC, that is for our new probation and parole officers. So they're required to complete that program prior to becoming an officer. Again, in FY22, the numbers on the screen reflect we had 25 probation and parole officers complete training, 4 members of our escape recovery teams, which those are correctional officers who are assigned to our level 4 facilities. And they go out and do community engagement when we have had somebody who has failed to return to the institution or has otherwise been deemed as escape status. We also did train 1 juvenile probation officer in FY22, and we have a memorandum of understanding to provide training to those officers who are assigned to the serious juvenile offender unit through the Division of Services for Children, Youth, and their Families. In FY23, the updated numbers are we trained 21 new probation and parole officers and 8 members of the escapee recovery teams. We did not have any juvenile probation officers come through our programs in FY23. As of right now, in FY24, we currently have 15 probation and parole officer cadets enrolled in our BOTC program. And we also have non-sworn basic training, so NSBT. That is a program for non-sworn staff members who are going to be working in the level 4 and 5 facilities directly with the inmates in positions such as counselors, teachers, paralegals, and others that provide services directly to the inmates. In FY22, we had 18 non-sworn members complete our basic training. Again, in FY23, we had 14 additional non-sworn staff. And so far in FY24, we have completed one of our 2 programs. And I don't have the updated number for FY24 on the NSBT. I apologize for that. We also offer our annual refresher training. So there are mandatory certifications that all of our staff, all of our sworn staff within the department are required to complete annually. And so those trainings are developed and delivered by staff here at the training academy. And then throughout the year, we offer various professional development opportunities and other optional trainings that are available to our onboard staff. And the picture that you see here on the slide is actually from one of our FBI LEDA trainings, which is the department has had a partnership with FBI LEDA for the past several years and will continue to do so into the future to provide some excellent leadership training to our staff. So again, I covered some of this, but the department, when we are fully staffed, we have about 2,500 employees, and we provide all of that, the mandatory training to both our onboard staff and to our new recruits. We work with each one of our institutions has what's called an institutional training administrator, or an ITA, and they help us to coordinate the trainings between the academy and the facility. They also at times will create training specific for their facility that will be held at their facility. As you can see, our physical training space, you have a picture here of our gymnasium where we do a lot of our physical training. We also transform that into our basically an auditorium where we hold graduations and other ceremonies for the department. We have several classrooms. We have a computer training room. We also operate the department's firing range. And our classrooms are used not just by the training academy, but for other needs for the department as well. We also have the opportunity to hold some of our training specifically for our cadets and also for some of our onboard staff, specifically in the probation parole officer series. We hold training off-site to make it more realistic. So we use the maximum security unit, the MSU building on the grounds of James T. Vaughn Correctional Center. And at times we've also been able to use the Morris Community Correctional Center. And those basically allow us to provide a realistic training environment for our new recruits and for our officers. We also use for our recruits, we use field training officers who act as inmate role players, again, to provide realistic training opportunities for our new recruits. So on the screen, you'll see a general overview of some of the courses that are provided in BOTC, which again is our basic training course for our new probation and parole officers. So with BOTC, we hold 2 every fiscal year. Training for BOTC is approximately 16 weeks and includes all of the courses that you see listed on your screen, as well as others. And right now, and we have been for the past several years during BOTC, our probation and parole officers during basic training are cross-trained with some of the skills needed to fulfill the role of a correctional officer, which allows them to work some overtime in our facilities upon graduation. So as you can see, it's a comprehensive course that provides a basic foundation for our new officers to work out in the community. We teach everything from basic communication skills. We teach, various legal aspects of the job, as well as, defensive tactics, firearms training, use of force, some of the tools that are necessary for the job and not necessarily maybe needed as often, but important when they are needed. And other trauma-informed classes, and again, a well-rounded platform, which is a basic foundation to start the role as a probation and parole officer. In our non-sworn basic training program, this is a 5-week program, and we actually just recently, I guess in the past 3 years or so, started NSBT as its own program. Our candidates in those programs used to be incorporated partially in with SEAT or BOTC, and we just found that it would make more sense to have a program that was dedicated to their unique role within the department. So our non-sworn partners, as I mentioned previously, fill an important role in the institutions by providing counseling services, legal services, and other professional services to the inmates in support of the department's mission. So again, some of the programs that they receive, or some of the trainings that they receive in their program, conflict resolution, they do receive a lower level defensive tactics, notification of some of the legal guidelines surrounding their jobs, and then just some specific tools that are necessary for their job role, risk needs assessments, and other report writing and skills that are necessary for the non-sworn positions. So moving into our SEAT program, I believe, are we going to do a poll?
Yep, let me actually launch that poll. So Director Hunter just talked to us about the initial training for probation and parole officers and for our non-sworn staff. And now we'll talk about for our correctional officer cadets. So let's see. We're going to launch the third poll. And ask how many weeks of training do you believe that cadets receive before being assigned as correctional officers to a facility? Thanks for jumping right in there with your responses. Give everyone a few seconds to answer. Right. We have almost everyone's responded. And I will end the poll. And share the results. All right, Director Hunter. So the 72% of our respondents believe that the Correctional Officer Academy runs for 13 weeks, followed by 6 weeks and 9 weeks. Can you tell us what the correct answer is?
So the correct answer is 13 weeks.
Right,
13 weeks. So that was good. Most of the people got it right. So 13 weeks. So as I stated previously, BOTC for probation and parole officers lasts 16 weeks, and our non-sworn class is 5 weeks. And SEAT, which is for our new correctional officers, is a 13-week course. So as you'll see, a lot of the trainings that they are offered are also similar to what is received in both BOTC and our non-sworn classes. There's a lot of overlap, obviously, as the same skills are necessary, just maybe delivered in a different way that is specific for one's individual job role. So we hold 6 SEAT classes every fiscal year. We currently have 2 in session right now. I'm not sure if I mentioned previously, but we hold 2 non-sworn classes a year and 2 BOTC classes each year. Can't remember if I mentioned that. But as I stated, there's a lot of overlap because no matter what a person's role is within the department, there are certain skills that everybody needs. And we focus here at the Training Academy that no one position is more important than another, that they are all equally important and necessary for the department to work together smoothly as one entity. No matter what class you're in for basic training, but specifically for SEAT, it's very physically and mentally challenging because we are preparing our staff to work in our correctional facilities. And, you know, working in a dangerous environment, we ensure that they receive everything necessary to build that basic foundation, which they'll be able to build on throughout just on-the-job experience, and then also, you know, different professional development opportunities that we provide. Again, these are some more trainings that are provided in SEAT. As you can see in this photo, our cadets are outside, so we use our gymnasium, which was pictured earlier, as well as our outside areas outside of the training academy to provide practical physical training to prepare our officers for the role of working in the institutions. So in order to successfully graduate from SEAT and move on to the role of a correctional officer, which Chief Troxler will talk about in just a minute, they have to complete the 13-week training academy. They must demonstrate an adherence to the core values and all policies and procedures of the department. And cadets must pass all academic and practical applications that are provided throughout training, as well as complete the PT test, the physical training test. So the physical training test that is completed in the academy is the same that Director Nichols spoke about earlier. That's part of the pre-hire event. At the pre-hire event, our new applicants are required to complete the physical training test. They have to do that again in order to successfully complete the academy. They just have to do it in a shorter time. Some of the additional training opportunities that we have are listed on the screen. We take a lot of pride in looking at new opportunities, looking at current trends, to be able to provide opportunities to our staff, because it is obviously important that our current staff, in addition to maintaining mandatory certifications that are required every year, that they have opportunities to broaden their horizons and keep current in related practices. And so our annual trainings are listed under the refresher section, and there are legal guidelines. There are institutional specific trainings that must be completed, as well as CPR, first aid, AED, suicide prevention, PREA training. Those are required for all staff, regardless of your position. Certain positions require annual firearms training, use of self-contained breathing apparatus, and other topics that would be specific to their role within the institutions or district offices. I mentioned earlier there was a photo picture with FBI LEDA. We have had a partnership with them again for several years. They provide excellent training. We have partnered with the Bureau of Healthcare, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services for the past several years to provide crisis intervention training that is specifically offered to our officers working within level 4 and 5 facilities that work directly with inmates suffering from mental illness. We also provide ongoing communication trainings, mental health first aid, correctional officer fatigue to fulfillment, and other resilience training for our staff. Because as we all know, working in corrections or law enforcement in general is a stressful environment, and we want to provide our staff with the tools that they need to stay healthy, so that when they're fulfilling their job role, they can do so coming from a good place themselves.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now, thank you, Director Hunter, for all of that information, and I'm sure we'll have some questions for you at the end. Now we're going to turn to some information on what it is like working in Delaware prisons. So we're going to turn it over to the Chief of Prisons, Shane Troxler. And Chief, if you would like to take it over, this is your first slide, and then, oh, you got fancy here. And then after this slide, we're gonna do a poll. So
Sure.
take it away.
Good morning. First, it's always tough to follow Director Hunter. She does such a phenomenal job. Not only presenting, she also does a phenomenal job with running our training academy. And, you know, the initial training is so important because that is the cadets' first taste of the Delaware DOC. And, she does such a phenomenal job, and all our staff there at Stephen R. Floyd Training Academy does. So my name is Shane Troxler. I've been the Bureau Chief since 2019. I was appointed as the Bureau Chief, and the Bureau of Prisons oversees the Level 5 facilities across the state. I oversee BWCI, which is the women's prison in Newcastle, James T. Vaughn, which is in Smyrna, Howard R. Young in Wilmington, Sussex Correctional Institution in Georgetown, the Special Operations Unit. And within the Special Operations Unit, you have our K-9 division, our CERT team, which is equivalent to our SWAT team, our Intel Fusion Center, which is responsible for intelligence gathering and sharing, the Stephen R. Floyd Training Academy, food service statewide, facility maintenance statewide, and also the Delaware Correctional Industries, which is DCI, so all our industries. So it's a very big bureau. The Delaware DOC has 4 established bureaus. We have the Bureau of Prisons, the Bureau of Community Corrections, Administrative Services, and the Bureau of Medical, Mental Health, and Substance Abuse. Our budget annually is over $350 million for the department. The Bureau of Prisons, we oversee just over $2 million of that budget. So it's a very busy bureau, and a lot of effort goes into this. As you heard from my bio at the beginning of the webinar, you know, it really hits home at all the opportunities this agency has for correction officers. I started as a correction officer, started in the seat process as Director Hunter went over, went on to be a correction officer at James T. Vaughn and worked all the housing units, worked in maximum security, minimum security, and then just progressed through my career with that. You know, it's a very fulfilling career, and we're going to get into a lot of the specifics as we go on. So you can go ahead and move on to the next slide, Heather.
All right. So we're going
Unless
to
you have a
talk.
poll.
Yep, we're going to talk about staffing now. So before you move into your slides, let's take a poll and see what people think kind of about our current staffing. So approximately how many correctional officers do you believe are currently employed by the Delaware Department of Corrections? All right, I'll give everyone's jumping in. Give everyone another few seconds to respond. Appreciate everyone responding. I'll close out the poll right about now, and I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So our respondents, 50% of our respondents have indicated that they believe we have about 1,500 correctional officers currently employed, followed by 32% that say 2,500. So the correct answer is actually B, 1,500. I will say that let's see, am I sharing the results? Do you see those? Stop sharing. All right. So I will say that those who said 2,500, I think you were paying attention to other parts of the webinar, because we do have approximately 2,500 employees overall. So that was also a good guess. So Chief Troxler like I said, we currently have about 1,500 filled CO positions. And then if you want to go over, this is kind of just an overview of our filled positions over the last few fiscal years. This is information that you can find in our annual report. So this is through our last annual report, but I'll turn it back over to you to kind of discuss staffing and then going over more information about correctional officers in Delaware.
Yeah, so, like Chief Zwicker said, our staffing is a little over 1,500 at the moment. As you can see that we've had several years where we're over 1,700, which is great. Currently, we have roughly above 350 vacancies. We were doing really well before COVID hit, and we saw a decrease in applications. Also, some retirements and that kind of thing. So we're slowly coming out of that that time period, and with the new incentives Director Nichols spoke of, we're starting to see our applications, in fact, doubled. So we're very, very hopeful with our staffing numbers going up. All our facilities, staffing is determined through a staffing analysis that we do, and that staffing analysis is a evidence-based tool from the National Institute of Corrections that looks at all the operations, look at the population, look at our physical plant, look at all the security apparatuses, and we'll go over the facilities later on in this PowerPoint. But the layout of the facilities dictate housing. The opportunities for supervision, such as indirect or direct supervision, whether or not we have control rooms, those kind of things, all play into staffing. So a lot of people, when they think prison staffing, they automatically kind of think of, well, how many inmates, and is there a inmate versus officer ratio? And that's not the case. It's all based on site specific, and it's ran through an evidence-based instrument to determine how many staff we need for each facility. First, I just want to talk about BWCI, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each facility, level 5 facility, since we are talking about working inside the facilities, and kind of give an overview of what those facilities are and kind of what someone can expect when working in these facilities. So first, we have BWCI. It's our only women's prison within the state. The active population right now is 262, which is down. The very unique thing about BWCI is 127 of the 262 are detentioners. They're pretrial detainees. Which means they have not been sentenced for the crime that they were committed for. Very unique situation. Delaware, we are a unified system, which means we do not have county jails. All our institutions house pretrial detainees as well as sentenced detainees. We keep them separate, and we have policies and procedures that guide us through that. So Baylor, again, very high detention rate. When I was deputy warden there in 2015, our population was sometimes over 500. So we've seen a decrease in that population, which has been very, very good. The women's prison makes up about 6% of our total prison population. So that's kind of unique as well. It's a very small facility, but it has its own challenges. It has its own kind of unique style of how it runs. And a lot of times the per diem in that facility is more because we still have to follow all Delaware codes, all our policies and procedures, even though it's a little smaller than the other facilities. So sometimes it costs a little more to run that prison. All our facilities are ACA accredited. This is the gold standard for the correctional industry. Currently, BWCI is accredited from the ALDF, which is the jail standards, we went that route because the majority of the population are pretrial detainees. It's also a compound style setting, which we'll get into why that's important when working as a correction officer there. Next facility we're going to talk about is James T. Vaughn. It's the state's largest facility in the state. It's in Smyrna. The active population right now is 1,640. We have 77 detentioners, and you might say, "Wow, that's really low compared to Baylor's ratio." Well, the reason why that is we do not take intakes from the street. We don't take new intakes from police agencies. We only do that at SCI, Howard R. Young, and Baylor. So male commitments from the street go to Howard R. Young and SCI. The 7 detentioners that are there, a lot of times we have a more dangerous detentioner there, maybe someone with a very high bail, maybe a very infamous crime, such as we've had some charged with murder of a law enforcement agent. We may have someone that is in there for a very, very high profile sex crime. Those types of offenses we normally house at James T. Vaughn. James T. Vaughn is also ACA accredited. They're accredited under the ACI standards, which is the prison standards, different than the jail standards. There's a little more. There's actually probably 120, if not more, standards that they have to go by, and it's just a lot around the care and treatment offenders with longer sentences that are going to be with us more than a year. It's also a compound style prison. The unique thing about James T. Vaughn as well is that we house the majority of our maximum security at James T. Vaughn. We have the SHU and the MOO, which is a security housing unit, and the maximum security housing unit. Those units house about 200 apiece, and those beds are dedicated for those that present unique security challenges for either the other facilities or the compound. So we have a system in place where we slowly try to integrate them back into a social environment and give them the tools and education that can get those folks back on the compound and behaviors appropriately. Our SHU operation has really evolved over the last couple of years, especially with our restrictive housing reforms. Currently, we do not have solitary confinement in Delaware, which is huge. We all offer an appropriate out of cell time for the men within the SHU. So we've done really well with that. Some things that we've noticed in the SHU area over the last couple of years since we've went on these reforms, and there's some research out there that you can do on restrictive housing reforms. But some of the benefits we've seen a decrease in violent incidents in those areas. Due to the reforms, we've seen a reduce in grievances out of those units. And we've actually seen a decrease in workman comp claims and those types of things. So really, really doing well in those metrics. But that's James T. Vaughn. And as you can see, it is a compound style as well. Now we got Howard R. Young. And as you can see from the picture, it is not a compound style campus. It's all under one roof. It's this state's largest pretrial facility. The active population is about 1,339, and we have 634 detentioners. So you can see each facility has their own unique kind of trademarks that separate them and make each environment a little different, which I think is great. Being someone that's worked every facility during my career, it gives officers the opportunity to transfer to other facilities, try something new, and learn as much as they can as they go through their career. Much like Baylor, Our ACA accreditation at Howard R. Young is the ALDF standards, because we have a high number of detentioners within that facility. So it makes more sense to follow those standards. And we worked in coordination with ACA to decide that. Again, it's a not a compound style campus. It's all under one roof. It has a lot of benefits to that, and it also has kind of some cons as well. That's why we try to move offenders that have anywhere from 5 or more years to either SCI or James T. Vaughn. That way they can get outside more. We do have outside recreation at Howard R. Young. However, it's kind of not as large of an area. As you can see, you don't have a baseball field and those kind of things. So those with more time, we try to move to another facility. That way they get that outside and more space and time. And for our last level 5 facility, we're going to talk about SCI. This is Sussex Correctional Institution down in Georgetown. The active population there is 1,097. 368 of those in custody there are detentioners. They're covered under the ACI standards, which are the prison standards. Much like James T. Vaughn, and it is a compound style campus again. So, you know, again, as I move on through a presentation, we'll talk about the different jobs in a compound style campus versus areas like Howard R. Young. So we're going to talk about law enforcement positions within the BOP. And the rank structure real quick. Right now you start off as a correction officer, and then you can move from correction officer to correctional corporal and correctional sergeant through a career ladder. The career ladder is a non-competitive opportunity that you can advance to a different rank without competing for that with your peers. However, there are standards that you must meet to move on to those ranks. There's also a wage increase to those ranks. A couple of things tied to the career ladder is so many years as a correction officer, corporal, to make sergeant. You must pass a physical fitness test. You must have a meets expectations within your performance evaluation. You must get through an oral interview and answer the questions correctly, and then you can move on through your career. It's a good thing, you know. You could look at it as giving yourself a pay raise while you're working and doing the right thing and moving on through your career. You can give yourself a pay raise and take on more responsibility. Within the correction officer series up to correctional sergeant, we have multiple jobs. We have opportunities. You can be a canine officer. You can be a court and transportation officer. You can be a CERT operator. You can be an FTO, a pre-investigated. You can also go food service. In food service, we have correction officer ranks and also moving up through sergeant. A lot of opportunities, and as Chief Zwicker said in the next series, I believe, Chief, if I heard you right, we're going to get into the specific jobs within the prison and those specialties such as those. You can also then move to correctional staff sergeant. That's where you start to compete with your peers, and it's a competitive process. And that staff sergeant rank is now when you start taking more of a supervisory role within the prison. And then you can go to correctional lieutenant, which is now you're going to be in charge of an area. And the next slide we'll talk about, the jobs, duties and kind of where we're at. But a lieutenant's position, you're going to be overseeing multiple correction officers, correctional sergeants in an area, whereas correction officers may be in charge of a housing unit and in charge of control and order, and helping folks with getting to school, signing passes, doing area checks, all those things. But as a lieutenant now, you're going to be in charge of multiple housing areas and in charge of multiple correction officers, and you're going to have checks and balances of inventories and that kind of thing. The correctional staff lieutenant is then the next rank. A lot of times your correctional staff lieutenant will have a unit command, and they'll supervise the lieutenants and all the way down to the correction officer. Our staff lieutenants also do things like they're in charge of the grievance process for the population. They're in charge of investigations, staff supervisions, and then shift command. And then you have your correctional captain, who is also an investigator, pre-compliance managers, and also shift commanders. So they oversee the entire shift for a particular prison. And then you have the majors. The majors is that first step of 24/7 on call, responsible for the safety and security of the entire facility, all 3 shifts. And we'll talk about the shifts in the next slide. But the major is that position normally that's going to interact with all 3 shifts, and they're going to have to uphold the safety and security for all 3 shifts of the prison. And then you have your deputy warden. The deputy warden oversees the operations side and the policy development for each prison. They also have a hand in developing the facility budget. The deputy warden also interfaces a lot with behavioral health staff, medical staff, treatment staff, to coordinate, to work in concert with all those entities, because all those entities lend to a safe environment. So deputy warden plays a big role in collaborating with all those other entities. And then you have the warden. The warden is in charge of the entire facility. They're covered under Delaware code with authorities of that facility. And then they manage the facilities, they develop the policies, develop the budgets, report to myself, the chief of prisons, and does make sure everything happens within the prison. The warden is a very, very, very important position within the facility. So working behind the walls, we'll talk real quick. One thing about prisons, obviously they're a 24/7 operation. We're open 24/7. That requires staff to be at work on midnight shifts, night shifts, day shifts, as well as holidays, weekends, and those kind of things, which is unique. A lot of people aren't used to working the shift work, but there's some benefits to it. As Director Nichols had in his slide, I don't know if anyone caught it, but there's a 5% shift differential for those that work 4 to 12 and 12 to 8. Also, for those that rotate on shifts, that 5% is 5% of your pay. Goes into your check every 2 weeks. So while the shift work is not ideal, you are compensated for that, it works well. We have 3 shifts, 8-hour shifts. We have the 8 to 4 shift, the 4 to 12 shift, and 12 to 8 shift. Correction officers work in housing unit. That's kind of like the meat and potatoes of corrections. Officers working in these housing units are where our population lives. They will work in area that they're responsible for, walking the halls, making sure the housing rules are being enforced, checking, making sure doors that are supposed to be locked are locked, checking on the population, making sure that everyone is safe, being visible. They also act as, a go-between for issues that our population may encounter while you're working the housing unit. You may listen to someone missing a laundry bag, maybe need some help with getting to class if they have a GED class. Also searching housing areas for contraband and making sure there are no dangerous weapons or anything being that could jeopardize the safety of the facility. So that's a real critical role. There's officers working the housing units. We have indirect models and direct models of supervision. When I talk about direct models, basically that means that the officer is desk and seat is right on the housing unit where the population lives, and they are directly there when they come out of their cells. The officer's desk and where they're at are right there. They're visible. They can see the line of sights for safety and security are there. And then we have an indirect model, which a lot of indirect models are within our maximum security housing units, where we have the doors that are operated from a control room. And we still have staff that are on the floors, and they monitor an entire tier within the policy and procedure. Our policy and the industry standard is that correction officers do their area checks, which means walk down the halls and check every cell every twice an hour, not to exceed 40 minutes between checks. So basically what that means is every half hour, there's a correction officer laying eyes on every single person in our custody. So that's working a housing unit. We also have towers. We have towers in our compound style environments. Those towers are responsible for oversight and overwatch of the entire facility. Mass movement, when you have 20 or more inmates going to chapel, or you have kitchen workers going out, and you may have 30 to 40 going to the kitchen to start the breakfast meal. Those inmates are called out. The towers are responsible for making sure that we have the appropriate count, we got the right count, and those inmates are moving to where they need to be moved. The towers are our last line of defense from escape. They're responsible of sectors within our fence line, and they oversee that to prevent any type of escape. We also have outside patrol units. Those outside patrol units are roving units. If you're a correction officer expecting to work an outside patrol unit, those units are going to do a foot patrol around the compound, checking for any impediments or issues with our fence line. Maybe there's a rust issue, or if you see a hole in the fence or something of that nature, you can easily spot it and report that and get that fixed. They have rolling patrol units that are in vehicles patrolling around, making sure the perimeter is safe and secure. They also oversee security within the parking lot, making sure there's no emergencies within the parking lot. We have a lot of traffic on the 8 to 4 shift, with visitors coming in and out, and also with lawyers coming in, staff coming in, and that kind of thing. And we want to make sure everyone's safe in our parking lot as well. So that's what you can look for in an outside patrol unit. Talked about control units. Control units or control rooms are kind of like the membrane of the whole operation. It's where we operate doors, controlling the egress, both in and out of the facilities. It's where we gather all our facility counts, and we do our facility counts 3 times a day. So you're working in there, you're going to submit the counts in our facilities and make sure every body that's in our custody is accounted for 3 times per shift. You're also going to be in charge of comms throughout the facility. So what that means is you're on the radio, you're using our 10 code system, and you're able to communicate and control movement throughout the facility, both with staff and the population. And it's also going to be an area where you're going to document all our equipment and those kind of things that are safe and secure. We did have intake, which is our booking and receiving areas. Very, very important role as well. These intake areas get commitments from the street, from police agencies. They check those commitments to make sure that they're proper and they're the right paperwork. And you also have to verify to make sure the person that the police agency has in custody is in fact that person. So they're responsible for doing fingerprinting in our system to make sure we got the right person. We also go through an intake process and orientation process of the expectations of the facilities, the rules of the facilities. We make sure that folks coming in are checked out by medical and cleared to be safely housed on thing. We go through a behavioral health assessment so that we look for any kind of suicidal ideation to protect against that. Another thing the booking and receiving does is inventory property. So if I come in and I have on my clothes, obviously we take those clothes and we inventory those and store those in a safe place for that person. The intake area is also responsible for releasing. When we get release orders from central records, those are verified through our shift commanders and they send them down to booking and receiving, kind of the same out processing, the same. There's a medical screening that you have to ensure that is done. There's checks and balances to make sure there's no active warrants or detainers from other states. And then you also, again, we fingerprint you to verify that you're the person that is supposed to be released. We also coordinate with reentry if there's transportation needs. If there's special needs, maybe someone needs to get to a probation office, maybe there's a health issue that needs to be taken care of, and those kind of are filtered through Chiefs of Wicker's group with reentry, and we work with our behavioral health partners on that. Then you have administrative jobs. I talked about the warden and the deputy warden and the major. Those jobs are kind of high level within the facility, overseeing the overall operations for the entire facility. Policy development, budget development, and making sure the rules and regulations are enforced throughout the facility. We also have investigative units. These units do staff investigations as well as investigations in the population. They kind of go hand in hand with the next bullet point of STG, PREA, and ACA compliance. STG is our gang validation officers. So they follow the federal law on how we validate active gang members and track and make sure that we're housing gang members properly and safely, and make sure that we're following all mandates regarding that aspect. Then we have our PREA compliance manager, which PREA compliance manager, PREA is the Prison Rape Elimination Act. We are audited every 3 years, right, Chief? Every 3 years by an outside agency for PREA compliance. There's a certain amount of standards that we have to fall within. We assess people for vulnerability to sexual abuse. We have rules on how we house folks according to those assessments. And just like every rule, there's somebody needs to go behind and check and make sure we're in compliance with those standards. So that's what the PREA compliance manager does. And same thing for ACA. ACA, I talked about it, each facility being accredited. in certain standards, our ACA compliance managers ensures that we are within the standards of those particular manuals. So then you have shift commander and supervisory positions. Those positions, the shift commander is ultimately responsible for the entire shift. They're responsible for oncoming staff, making sure we're at the appropriate number of staff in accordance with our staffing plan. They also, help staff throughout the shift, give direction when needed, ensure post orders are being fulfilled. They're responsible for communicating any emergencies to the warden and deputy warden and major. They're responsible for coordinating mass movements, coordinating movements such as emergency situation where an inmate needs to go out, 911, and we have to send out with an ambulance. They have to coordinate that, shut down the facility proper, and make sure everyone's safe and get the medical aid to where they need to get. So it's a very busy position, and they oversee the lieutenants as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of different opportunities, and I think really what I want to hit home is you can see by the picture on the PowerPoint, there's a lot of opportunity within the DOC. That's what kept me around in the DOC for over 20 years. I was able to bounce around not only as a correction officer in maximum security for a little while. I went down to Sussex County and became a drill instructor at the boot camp there, where we don't have the boot camp now. We do have a drill instructor opportunities at the training academy. Then I went over and was a shift supervisor at the Sussex Violation and Probation Unit, which is a level 4 facility. We didn't even talk about that. And took advantage of some opportunities like that. I was also on the CERT team and was able to progress through ranks on that CERT team and ultimately run Sussex County CERT team for a number of years. And then shift gears and went up to women's prison, and was the deputy warden up there and kind of got that aspect with working with the female population, which is a very unique kind of way to work, because the pathway for incarceration for women is a lot different than men, and it's a very unique environment, and learned a lot. So I guess my point is, in saying all that, is we have a very, very big opportunity for anyone interested in being a correction officer to not only just, think that I'm just going to be a correction officer and this is my only job. There's many jobs on the correction officer rank itself, plus endless opportunity for promotion, and then jobs within those promotions. So I look at it as a great opportunity, and I encourage you to reach out to a recruiter if you're not already employed with us and you're thinking about it and that kind of thing. But reach out to us and get the conversation with recruiters and find out what you're interested in. If you have thoughts of being a K-9 officer or investigator, or you want to be a lieutenant, all those things, all those opportunities are there. So.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And we have a special section of our website kind of dedicated to recruiting. So join DelawareDOC.com is up there. And I think, like Chief Troxler said, we're just kind of trying to put the point across that there are so many things that are available to do in the Delaware Department of Correction. And it's not, I think that it's not, people don't know a whole lot about what it means to be a correctional officer. And I think kind of sometimes the perception is that it's just, kind of counting keys and counting people, and maybe it's boring and monotonous. And I don't know, to me, this is a job where it is something new every single solitary day. I don't think any of us have a day go by where we don't have something come up where like, that's a new one, right? So it's an exciting career. So again, join DelawareDOC.com is a place you can go to get more information. I thank everyone for joining us to learn more about the Delaware Department of Correction. I see on our kind of attendee list, we have some people who join us all the time. I thank you for being repeat attendees. And we also have some new folks I haven't seen before. So thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for to our panelists for coming and providing information to everyone. We also wanted to provide you also with some information, email addresses for different teams at the DOC who might be able to help you with any questions that you have. We have our reentry mailbox. If you have questions specific to reentry, our victim services team information is up here. Our community relations team is up here. If you have information, questions about specific individuals who are in custody or under supervision, just keep in mind that if you are requesting information about a specific individual, we can't release certain personal or health related information about an individual without their permission. So if you do inquire about a specific person, we will be asking you about your relationship to the person and make sure that the proper releases are on file in order to release any information to you. Please be on the lookout for a date announcement for the second part of the Working Behind the Walls series, where we're going to kind of dive a little deeper into some of those more specialized positions that Chief Troxler was touching on. You can follow the Delaware Department of Correction. We have, like I said, our YouTube channel where all of our previous webinars are available, as well as other content. We have an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and an X page. We're also on LinkedIn, so please, follow us on all of our socials, and we do post the webinars on our socials. If you join today, you're now part of our listserv, so you should get an email when we announce the next webinar. If you joined a little late and you missed the beginning announcement, this webinar is recorded and it will be available on the YouTube channel after the fact, and we will also make the PowerPoint available, and we will also make certificates of attendance available if you stayed for the majority of the webinar. Before we move to the Q&A session, we would just like to invite you to participate in one last poll to kind of give us an idea of what you thought of the webinar. Just a reminder that the poll answers are anonymous, so we don't know who is responding. So if you could just let us know how satisfied you are with this webinar. We're always looking for ways to improve on the information that we're imparting to you. So if you could just go ahead and give us a response to the poll. And then again, if you would like to give us feedback or suggestions for future webinars, you can reach out to any of the mailboxes the reentry mailbox that we provided, or your registration. I think there was information, an email with the registration that you can respond to. So I appreciate people responding to the satisfaction poll. And let's see, we have a couple of questions. A little off topic, but I think that but interesting. So Chief Troxler, I think this one is for you.
Yeah.
So one of the participants is asking our opinion on the use of video for court appearances and meetings between those detained and those trying to assist, so lawyers and counselors, etc., and whether or not we believe that it helps DOC. And I think that's an interesting question too, because I think that the use of that really expanded during COVID.
Absolutely.
So if you want to provide some thoughts on the use of video court and some kind of and other kind of virtual.
Absolutely.
meetings.
And that's a great question. Great question. And to Chief Zwicker's point, absolutely. We increased the use of video platform significantly once COVID happened. When COVID happened, it was a pandemic that we never dealt with in prison, and the silver lining of those are we kind of challenged the status quo. We stepped out of our norms, and we created a lot of opportunities for not only ourselves but also our population to engage in things virtually. And a part of that was setting up virtual courtrooms. The courts, we work very close with the courts. I was a part of a steering committee that we met every single week to discuss rolling out a virtual court. And we increased virtual encounters over 100%, versus the traditional video courts. Before we did video court, it was just for kind of setting bail for those that came in and were detained, and then they were presented in front of a judge to either grant a bail, set a bail amount, and those kind of things. But now we're actually started doing hearings. They started doing sentencing, all those things. And we bought a lot of video equipment because the old system used to be kind of on its one system called Polycam. It was a camera that was, I don't know if you can see me, it was like that big, and now we shifted down to very small webcams that are safe and secure. We utilize Zoom and those other platforms other than just the Polycam system. So we've evolved in that. And what the great thing that came out of that is once COVID was kind of over, we continue to keep those things going. We had the equipment, we had the operation down path, so we've continued to handle matters virtually. And those are those encounters that you spoke of. Lawyers can meet with their clients virtually. Judges can meet with witnesses, the whole nine, right on virtually, and it's done a great deal for safety and security. So the most dangerous job and is transporting the population to and from facilities, to hospitals, to courtrooms, those kind of things. In the industry, that's the most dangerous position within our facility. So when we can cut down on those runs, it also requires staff to be doing this. So if we can do whatever we can to cut down those runs, it's increasing safety and security, and it's increasing our ability not to rely on staffing to do those transports. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Another question is asking about kind of the infrastructure of the facilities, right? So, our facilities are aging, right? Like everything else. And how are we planning to make sure that our facilities continue to be in appropriate shape to be safe and secure for our staff and for our incarcerated population?
I can take that one as well. Thanks for that question. Yes, our facilities are aging. We have a capital budget process that I work closely with facility maintenance department on, and we prioritize our physical plant. One thing about the capital process is it's very regimented, and it takes a very long time to figure out. You got to do an appropriate study to ensure what you want to build and what you want to do is appropriate. You got to study the electrical outlets down to the sewage, down to the footprint or land that you're going to build upon, and then you have to then design it, and that costs a lot of money to design it. And once you get a design figured out, then you can request money through the capital budget to secure the funds to build. So there's kind of three things going on there. The study, the design, and then the actual construction. We work close on trying to secure funds for those things. And when we talk about the design, that's second in the middle phase, that's a very costly expense to design. You're talking anywhere from $3 to $7 million on a design, and that design is going to tell us that we need close to 75 to 100 million to build a new facility. So obviously that's a lot of money, and sometimes that takes planning over a number of years to ask for those funds in separate fiscal years, and then that is prioritized through the legislators on other needs in state government. So but in the meantime, while we're trying to identify what to replace and how to replace things, we have a preventative maintenance schedule that we work close with, and we look at projects such as replacing infrastructure needs such as boilers, roofing, HVAC systems, those kind of things. And I rely heavily on our facility maintenance to kind of prioritize those and report to me what needs to be fixed, when it needs to be fixed, how much it's going to be, how we can ask for those funds, and how many fiscal years can we do this. In a perfect world, I would love to replace some of these buildings that were built in the 60s and that kind of thing. But reality is we have to prioritize, execute those that we can, and work closely with our legislators on articulating our needs and hopefully getting the support for those. Realizing that everybody has needs throughout state government, and how that falls through. So I hope that answers the question. It's kind of long and lengthy, but that's kind of where we're at with that.
Great, thank you. And then we have another question that I think I'll take myself, and it's kind of about the use of the question's about a specific piece of technology to assist with the reentry process. And I think we can answer that question specifically offline, but I think what I can just say here is that that we do leverage technology through ViaPath with our inmate tablet system, and we're constantly meeting with the vendor to we actually just met with them today to kind of go over how the tablet processes are working in the facilities and how we can utilize them the most efficiently, and what enhancements we can make to make things run better within the facilities. So we're constantly exploring ways that we can use technology, even with as Chief Troxler was talking about, moving things virtually during COVID. So I think that's we're always looking for ways to improve processes and using technology to do that. And when there are individual organizations that would like to explore working with the Department of Correction, we ask you to reach out to us and provide us information on your product, and we're always open to new ideas and new technologies. So if you haven't reached out to us, you can reach out to us for those things through the reentry mailbox. And if you have, reach out again, and we're always happy to talk. One more question that I'm not sure and it was asked anonymously, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to we might not be able to follow up. I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer. It might be one of those questions that's kind of too specific to answer broadly. And it might be one of those, you'll have to, meet with an individual to kind of answer it, but it's regarding the hiring process, right? And how do, sorry, I hit a button. Right, so felonies obviously felony convictions disqualify from the hiring process. And the question is, if a felony has been expunged, does it still impact the hiring process? And I think that's a big question right now, right? Because there is There's been a lot of changes in the law, and there's a lot more room for expungements than I think there ever have been in the past. So I'm not sure if anyone on here is prepared to kind of answer that specifically right now, or if it's something that we might would just want to refer to the recruiters to answer as a individual question later.
I think that probably was a question that we could answer individually later.
Yeah. So, okay. All right, so that looks like all of the questions that have been put into the queue. Oh, what I do? Did I stop sharing? Into the Q&A box. So again, I want to thank everyone for attending. I thank again the presenters for being here and providing information. Please, keep an eye out and join us next time. And we will, over the next couple of days, post this session to our YouTube channel. And we will make certificates of completion available if you are here for the majority of the session. And thank you very much for attending. See you next time.